Hey everyone, welcome. How's midterms week? Still midterms week for you guys? Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for showing up despite that. So today we'll be going over long short-term memory or LSTMs. Next slide. And why do we need to go over this? Well, because now you'd be one step closer to learning about how transformers work. And these LLMs that you use like ChatGPT, etc., these are based off of the transformer architecture. So by learning about LSTMs, you are one step closer to learning about transformers. So just a quick recap on what we covered last week. So last week we covered RNNs. I won't go so much into detail about how those work. I'll just give a brief overview so this lesson will be a bit easier to understand. So to get the RNNs are based on to get the output, we rely on these hidden states. And the way we compute, so if we're at this like time step 1 over here, the way we compute this hidden state is we're going to take this input at this time step, multiply it by some weight, and then take the previous hidden state, multiply that by some weight, sum the two together, and that's how we get our next hidden state. Next one. And we repeat the same process. If we want to get this hidden state at time step 2, we would take this input at time step 2 and the hidden state at time step 1, and then sum the two, like combine these two, and we get this next hidden state. Yeah. So every time you want to get, like if I want to get hidden state 2, I'm dependent on hidden state 1. I don't really have that much information about hidden state 0. Okay, next. So let's take a look at this example right here. And this is the kind of the example we'll be going off throughout this the meeting. So the sentence, the cat jumped over the mat and something. So what are some possible words for this that we can fill in here and have the sentence make sense? Any ideas? Just any word that would make the sentence work. There's no wrong answer. And fell over. Okay, perfect. Fell over. Next. So, but regardless of what we pick, so we pick fell over, but we could also pick like, and ran or and whatever, like and meowed or whatever. But regardless of what we picked, whatever word is here depends on the word cat. So it's a cat that's doing, it's that fell over, that like jumped, or sorry, that like ran or whatever. It's a cat that's doing that action. So this word here is dependent on this word. Next. So why can't we just use an RNN to predict this? Because we know how that works, and like, so why not? Next. And the reason is because we know that this word here is dependent on the word cat, but the word cat is like 5 words behind this word that we want to predict. So the problem with RNNs is we could lose some information about cat that would make it really hard to predict this next word. Next. So now let's kind of go into segue more into LSTMs. So as like before this, when you picked the word fell over, right? When we saw this sentence, just forgetting about like computers, ML, forgetting about all this stuff, just when we're reading this sentence as a human, what like we are kind of thinking something was going through our minds, which allowed us to decide that this next word can be fell over. Like in theory, we could have picked any dictionary word, but we knew that there is some set of words, restricted set of words that we could use here that would actually make the sentence make sense. Next. So how did we go about doing that? So one thing is we took this word right here. So the last word that we left off at is and. So we took that into consideration. Next. Next. Another thing is everything we've read so far. So far we know that the cat jumped over the mat and something. So every single thing we know at this point right here, as soon as we read the word and, everything we know up to that point, we took that into consideration. Next. Next. And then we also took into consideration the fact this um, short area around this last word that we left off at. And we come next. And we combined these all this information in some way. In our brains, we combined it in some way, and using all this information, we were able to determine that the next word can be fell over. Next. So another way we can say this is we took this last word that we left off at and we also had this long-term memory of everything we saw, and we also had the short-term memory of the things that we kind of saw more recently. And we combined those. We took our long-term memory, some short-term memory, and this last word. We combined them in some way, and then we got our next word. Next. So that's essentially what an LCM does. It takes that last word that it sees. It'll take its long-term memory. It'll take some short-term memory. It'll combine all of that in some way, and that'll help it determine what the next word should be. Next. Next. Okay, so we know like the LCM, we know it uses long-term memory, it uses short-term memory, it uses some input word, it combines it, and it gets a new word. But how exactly, how does that process happen? Next. So if you remember from RNNs, just from a few slides back, the RNN takes the current time step or the current word, the previous hidden state, and those are the two components it uses to get to the next hidden state. Next. Yeah, next. So an LCM uses pretty much that, like a similar logic. So it also uses this current word, which in our case was and. It also uses a previous hidden state. But in addition to that, it also uses something known as a previous south state. And we'll go into a bit more detail about what these terms mean next. And it uses these components, this previous south state, this previous hidden state, to get to a new south state, a new hidden state. And then with this information, it'll be able to determine what the next word should be. Next. Yeah, so again, this is kind of our formula that we take some word, some long-term memory, some short-term memory, combine them and get to the next word. But we also introduced this idea of south state, hidden state. And so what exactly does that mean? Next. So the south state is essentially long-term memory. So we said that the LLM will take some long-term and short-term, and then we introduced this idea of south state and hidden state. So the south state is just this long-term memory, the south state and the hidden state is essentially the long-term memory, and the hidden state is the short-term memory. Next. So we can take this kind of formula and re-represent it as next. So it's the same thing. We just replace long-term and short-term with hidden and cell, or cell and hidden. Next. Okay, so what exactly does this, we said previous cell state, previous hidden state, but what does it really mean if we just look at the sentence? Next. So first we have this current word, this word we left off at, and so that's going to be our current word. Next. And then when we say previous hidden state, we're referring to the hidden state associated with this word, or this word. Next. And then when we say previous cell state, we're also referring to the cell state associated with this word. And then when we say we go from a previous hidden state to a new hidden state, or a previous cell state to a new cell state, we're going from we're going to determine the new hidden state, the hidden state of this current word. So we had the hidden state of this word, and now we're going to this word. And similarly, we go to the cell state of this word. So any questions so far? No? Okay, next. Yeah, so our mental process, again, we've seen this a few times, and we're going to see this again. Our process was we took some word, we combined it with some long-term or short-term memory, or some cell and some hidden state, and then we get the next word. But how does this, and we know that, okay, we interact with this in some way, but how does an LCM interact with this? Next. So the LCM is going to take this input word and this previous hidden state, and it's going to combine them next to generate what's called a candidate cell state, which um, this temporary state, which is like a candidate cell state. Next, and then it's going to take this candidate cell state and our original the previous cell state and combine those in a way that allows us to update our long-term and short-term memory. Next. Yeah, next. So this was kind of a high-level idea of how an LCM works, and we'll go into a bit of detail. But just to kind of tie in our example with this, so let's say the sentence was, the cat jumped over the mat and. So our input word would be and then we look at the hidden state of mat, so the word before and. We look at the cell state of mat, so the word before and then we'd combine the input word, so and that hidden state of mat, and we get candidate cell state, and then we take the cell state, the cell state of mat, combine it with this candidate state, and combine it in such a way that we can update our long-term and short-term memory. So does any questions on this kind of process at a high level? Yeah, next. So first, let's kind of go into like what is this exactly? What does this entail? And then we'll cover the other two processes next. So to get a candidate cell state, the LSTM takes the input. So in our case, this would be and then the previous hidden state, so the hidden state of the word mat, which came before and combine it by multiplying the word by some weights and the hidden state by some weights. And I'm not going to go super into how the math about how that works, but essentially multiply each of these by some set of weights, and then next, and then apply some activation function, and then from that it'll be able to derive a candidate cell state. Again, this is not super important. This is just there if you're interested in kind of understanding how the math works. But the idea is that it takes the in current word, the previous hidden state, and combines it to get the candidate cell state. Next. Again, this is just kind of the math put together. If you don't fully understand it, that's perfectly okay. Just understanding the idea that the input word and the previous hidden state are combined to get the candidate cell state. Next. Okay, so any questions on how this was derived? Okay, so now we'll go over how is this long-term, short-term memory updated, because we know the LSTM uses it, but how exactly does that update work? And the easiest way to go about this is likely through a visual. So next. So let's say that you're cleaning out your house or something. And so this previous cell state is going to be the current state of your house. And then maybe you have some new furniture that you want to move in. So this candidate cell state is going to be that new furniture. So when you want to clean out your house, you're going to go through your house and you're probably going to say, okay, there's some stuff I don't need. Next. So maybe this thing, you don't really need it. So you're going to throw it away, or you're gonna forget it. Next. And then you're gonna look at this box of new furniture that you have, and maybe all of it isn't useful, but there is some stuff in it that you want to put into your house. So maybe that's these two. So you're gonna say, okay, I want to add these two to my house. Next. And then, so now you know you have some things in your house that you're gonna throw away, and then you have some things that you want to add to your house. So you're just gonna take all the stuff that you want to add and add it to your house. Next. So now you're gonna get an updated version of your house. Yeah. That's a great question, and we'll get to that in 2 slides, so hang on. Yeah.
It's a vector. The hidden state, the inputs, the cell state, these are all vectors.
Like throwing something out with that, making that part of the vector zero.
Generally it'll be, you can think about it as removing information from the vector. It's a little bit more complicated with like linear algebra stuff to make it represent more stuff than it has room for, but sort of, yeah.
Okay, and so now on next slide. Okay, so now that can you go back? Yeah. So this process was updating your long-term memory. So you're throwing out stuff from your house and you're adding new stuff, and now this newly updated house is your long-term memory. And in that, so we said the LCM updates the long-term memory and the short-term memory. So the way it updates the short-term memory, next slide, is it takes some information from that long-term memory, and maybe it says like, okay, this green and this purple, that's it, like that short-term information that I need. So it's going to extract those components from this newly derived long-term memory or newly derived cell state, next, and put it into its short-term memory or its hidden state. Next. So this is if you want to, this is like the full flow about the full GIF, whatever, the full flow of it. If you want to, if maybe it helps to see it all like play through, so that's there for that. Next. Okay, so you brought up a very good point. So how does it know, or like how does it do that process of forgetting and adding information? Next. And so the answer to that is through gates. So the way you can think of gates is like, say that yeah, like if you look at like a traffic, like a intersection where the red light, yellow light, green lights, and the way cars can only go when there's a green light, when there's a red light, the cars can't go. So in that way, that flow of traffic is regulated, where some cars can go at some point and other cars can't. So in that, like kind of similar to that, you can think of gates in that way, where it's just saying that certain information, it's selecting certain information to be pushed further down. Next. So, like what are the types? So each gate plays some role in the process of information. So there's the forget gate, which helps the LCM decide what information from our cell state, from our long-term memory, should we forget. There's the input gate that says from our cell state, what should we add? So what should we add to our cell state? What should we add to our cell state? And then the output gate, which says what should we from this cell state, what should we save to our hidden state, or from our long-term memory, what should we save to our short-term? Next. And so the gates are, if you look at the LCM's architecture diagram, the gates are the forget gate. So F of T is forget gate. I of T is the input gate, and O of T is the output gate. So again, F of T is forget, so saying what should I forget. I of T is input, saying what should I add, and O of T is the output, which is saying what should I save to short term. Next. Okay, so let's kind of go through this and say like what show like how these gates interact with these vectors to determine what to forget, and what to remember. So firstly, if we want to derive our forget gate, the way the LCM does that is it takes the current word, it takes the previous hidden state, and it combines it in a way. It multiplies each by a set of weights in order to get the forget gate. Next. And then the way it uses the forget gate is it applies it to the previous cell state. Next. So again, if we go back to this example that we just covered, and we said that, okay, we have this house at its previous cell state, which is our house, and we want to like remove some stuff from it. So we want to forget some stuff. So that was, we can think of it as we applied the forget gate to our house. And then can you go back? Yeah, so In this way, we applied this forget gate to that current state of our house, and that's how we got the. That's how we were able. That's how we were able to forget some information from our house or remove some information. Next. Yeah. So, any questions on the forget gate? Yeah, so essentially the math is it'll multiply. I'll show the math in a few slides.
It's a little, so the sigmoid function, yes, it takes any number and it converts it to somewhere between 0 and 1. But remember, these are all vectors in practice. So let's say it's like a 20-dimensional vector. Each value is going to be converted to somewhere between 0 and 1. But that's still a 20-dimensional vector of things that are somewhere between 0 and 1. That stores a lot of information. And so if it's like, think about it where if it's like all ones, and it's multiplied by this, it won't forget anything. But if there's some elements in that vector that are 0, it'll forget those pieces. It'll be when you multiply by the hidden state or the sorry, not the hidden state, by the cell state. Anything that's a 0 will be completely erased. Anything that's a 1 will be kept fully, and most things will be somewhere in between there. So you'll be shrinking parts of the vector that's representing the cell state by certain amounts. So let's say like one of the elements of the vector is 0.5 going up. It means it'll take that element of the cell state vector and cut it in half. Or if it's 1, or if there's an element that's 1, it means it'll take that element of the cell state vector and keep it the same. Or if there's an element that's 0, it means it'll take that element of the cell state and erase it. Does that make sense?
Next one. Yeah. Okay, so that was the forget gate. So now moving on to the input gate. So how we get the input gate is pretty much this process is the same as how we got the forget gate. So we took this input word, multiplied it by some weight, and then the hidden state, multiply that by some weight, and add those two together through a sigmoid, and then we get the vector for the input gate. And then when we say, so this gate kind of tells us, okay, this is the information, or this is how we want to add information. So yeah, next slide. If we go back to our example, when this was our candidate cell state was this like new box of furniture, and this is like we wanted to add some stuff to our house. So we applied the input gate to this the way you can think of it is, okay, we applied this input gate to our box of new furniture, and we selected some stuff that we wanted to add. Back. So in that same way, we take this input gate and we apply it to our candidate cell state. So the CT hat, that's going to be our candidate cell state. So we apply this input gate to this candidate state, and that's how we, just like in our example, that's how we add information from our candidate state. Next. Okay, and so now we have the information that we want to remove, and we have the information that we want to add, and so we apply both of that. So next. Here, we removed this red purple circle, and then we want to add these two circles into our to finally update our cell state. Next, previous. And so that's essentially the process we're gonna do. We're gonna figure out, we know what we want to forget. We're gonna combine that with what we want to add, and that's how we're going to update our cell state. Any questions on this? Next. Yeah. Okay, so finally we covered the forget gate, we covered the input gate, and now we're gonna go over the final one, the output gate. So again, the process of figuring out what the output gate is the same as it was for the forget and input gate. So we're gonna take this current word, multiply it by the previous hidden state, apply a sigmoid, and we're gonna get an output gate. Next. Next. And then if you look at our example, we had this final cell state, and we just picked out information, and that's how we updated our hidden state back. So we're going to do that same process. So we're going to take our updated cell state and use it to apply the output to that updated cell state. And this is how we're going to get our final hidden state. Any questions on this? Next. Yeah, next. Okay, so this is just a math about how the forget gate is derived input output. And again, I'm not you don't need to, if you don't fully understand it, it's okay. But just one quick thing I'm gonna point out is for each gate, even though the process is the same, so even though you're taking the input word, the hidden state, and combining them, so that process is the same and the same activation function. It's just that the set of weights are different. So despite the fact that you're using the same inputs, you're still gonna get different vectors for your gates because the set of weights are different. Next. And then this is we talked about getting a candidate cell state, updating the cell state and updating the hidden state. And this is just the math for how that process works. So I'm not going to go so much into detail, but it's there if you're interested. So next. Okay, so now we've kind of worked through how an LSTM works, but we haven't answered a question that we came up with that we had in the beginning, which is how do I predict the next word? So, excellent. So yeah, how do I predict what this word is? Next one. So we derived a hidden state, and the way we derived a hidden state and we went over that process. And so this is the component that we're going to use for any downstream task. So in this case, our task is predicting the next word. It could also be there could also be other cases, so maybe some classification task or something. But in a specific case, or we're going to be predicting the next word, and so that's kind of what we'll go into right now. Next. Okay, so this was the hidden state that we derived, a green and purple circle. And the way we're gonna use this hidden state to predict the next word is we're gonna take the hidden state and pass it into like a small, like a mini neural network where the output is just gonna it's gonna say the likelihood that, so all of these words are all the possible words that we can use. So maybe this is every word in the dictionary. And now here I just put 6 words, but maybe it's every word in the dictionary. And we're going to use a hidden state and pass it into a small neural network just to determine the likelihood of each word being the correct output. So when we pass it in, we see, okay, meowed is 0.5, jumped is 0.1, eat is 0.1, and so forth. And the way we use this output is we say, okay, it's most likely that meowed is a correct word. So next. So based on this, I'm going to say that my full sentence or my predicted next word is meowed. Any questions on this?
Any questions on LSTMs as a whole?
Okay, so you've covered LSTMs. You've officially learned how an LSTM works. And now you're one step closer to learning about transformers next and ChatGPT. So this is our feedback form for the week, for this meeting. There's a QR code, so you can just take your phone out and scan it, and this will really help us improve future meetings. So please fill it out, because we do read all their responses. So pretty please fill it out.
Your slides as well.
No.
Okay. Do we want to go and come back to this again?
Okay. So next week we're gonna be going into LLMs or fine tuning LLMs. And then just quick reminder of our Sky's No Limit competition. We have workshops every Wednesdays between 1 and 3, 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 in E2506. So if you are not currently participating and are interested, this is just another reminder that it exists.
Specifically, I just want to note that this is this is a nice mic. I just want to note that this is specifically a competition for you guys to make your own neural networks from scratch. We have these workshops guiding you and helping you every step of the way. So if that's something that's interesting to you, we have these theory meetings on like now in this room where we teach you guys about the theory. But if you want to get more into coding and making them yourself, this is a really great way to do that. And then also participate in a competition with cash prize along the way. Yeah.
Then next one. Yeah. So thank you guys for coming out to this meeting. If you have any questions that you didn't, any questions that have come up or you just want to ask one-on-one, feel free to come up and ask those questions.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah, have a good day. We're ending a little bit